If Maltesers are a lighter way to enjoy chocolate, then in the same way, the little Mazda 2 is a lighter way to enjoy Super Mini motoring. Intentionally small and quick on its feet, it was a wise choice in this sector even before enhancements to comfort, ride, handling and refinement further improved what was already a very complete product. Sometimes designing from a clean sheet of paper can pay dividends. Take this second generation Mazda 2 Super Mini. Here was a car launched in 2007 by a brand with no real track record in bringing us very small cars, apart from some Japanese market oddities and a clutch of rebadged Fords. Yet from nowhere it was quickly up amongst the class leaders and was hailed as the World Car of the Year in 2008. The reasons why had much to do with weight. Thanks in part to Mazda's use of ultra-light but very strong steels, this model was able to be up to 150 kilograms, or nearly 10% lighter than many of its increasingly lardy Super Mini competitors. Now that in turn meant sharp handling to match the sharp looks and an efficient set of running cost figures, which brought Mazda over 200,000 European sales and a model that these days accounts for over a quarter of all their UK business. But in a class of almost 30 rivals, things can change very quickly. Sure enough, by late 2010, with new or substantially revised versions of nearly all this car's key competitors saturating the market, the Mazda 2 was in danger of becoming forgotten in the Super Mini sector's affections. Hence the need for this mildly revised version. Now, it isn't very different, and it didn't need to be. Mindful perhaps of an older actual buying demographic than the early trendy advertising targeted, Mazda has softened the suspension and introduced an urban targeted automatic version. Will it be enough to revitalise this car's appeal? Let's find out. Here's a car that always feels quick on its feet, easy to place and agile, whether the need is to nip in and out of city traffic or take the twisty way home. Now that lighter and now stiffer body shell pays dividends here, as does an electric power steering setup that offers excellent feel and a slick shift from the high-mounted gear lever. Plus, it also helps that this car shares a basic platform with the model that, from a driving point of view at least, leads the Super Mini class. That's Ford's Fiesta. Now, with all this going for it, this Mazda 2 was never going to be a dynamic duffer, but on some of Britain's bumpier roads, the ride of the original version was a little firmer than some buyers would have liked. Hence a revised rear suspension setup fitted to this improved model that aims to offer a little bit more of a compliant approach without damaging the firmish feel that always made the original version of this car such a fun choice for those who wanted to do more than just trip to the shops and back. But if that is the beginning and end of your small car remit, then this one still aims to please in the guise that I'm testing here, fitted with a 4-speed active-matic automatic gearbox. Now this option only comes with the 1.5 litre 102 PS petrol engine that's also fitted to the 1.5 Sport model. That's a car that with a manual box manages to make rest to 60 in 10.7 seconds on the way to a top speed of 115 miles an hour. Most Mazda 2 customers have little interest in going that fast, typically choosing instead between 75 and 84 PS versions of the 1.3 litre petrol engine that Mazda provides for volume sales. That's capable in 84 PS guise of going from rest to 60 in 13.6 seconds on the way to a top speed of 106 miles an hour. Perhaps a better compromise though between performance and parsimony comes with the 1.6 litre diesel. Now, diesel was an option that very few of the original customers for this car considered. Perhaps they should look again. The latest 1.6 litre unit has 95 PS, that's 5.5% more power than before. So rest to 60, which now takes 11.5 seconds, is no longer the yawnathon than it was in the original 1.4 litre diesel. If you want to test just how much the salesperson at your local Mazda dealership knows about the product, just ask them to cover the changes that differentiate this revised second generation Mazda 2 from the original version. They don't, after all, amount to very much. A larger front grille and Mazda badge, smarter wheels and different trim around the front fog lamps that you get on plusher versions. Fortunately, few changes were needed, this car always boasting one of the sharper shapes in the Super Mini sector. It isn't one of the bigger ones, but that seems to be intentional. Like Nissan, Mazda believes that small cars should be small and light. As I mentioned earlier, this car carries less excess weight than nearly all its rivals, tipping the scales at only just over 1,000 kilograms. The benefits of all this efficient design are apparent from a seat inside. Though the door openings on this 5-door variant are slightly narrow, it'll be a body style that's a preferable option to the 3-door for most customers. And once inside, despite a total body length of just 3.9 metres, there's room enough for 2 adults to comfortably sit, provided that they're not having to share this bench with a third person. Out back, the 250 litre boot is about average for the Super Mini class, and you can extend it to 787 litres by pushing forward a rear bench that only split folds if you avoid the entry-level version. It isn't a completely flat loading floor either, but you can talk to your Mazda dealership about a dividing boot board that splits the area for extra flexibility. And a wheel that adjusts for height, but not for reach. There's an airy ambience to the cabin, thanks in part to these deep side windows. There's a circular theme too, from the central information display that bids you hello as soon as you unlock the doors, to these 4 circular air vents, the big round speedometer and the smaller round rev counter. Now, Mazda hopes to have improved the whole feel of this interior with revised dials and a piano black finished centre stack here. But the reality is that there are better finished cars in this sector, even if many of them are more expensive. There are lots of neat design touches though. I like the way that the handbrake has been moved over nearer to the driver's leg, leaving space for a handbag-sized area next to it. And there's a useful Mp3 Jack right nearby for charging up phones and things. There are bottle holders in the doors. There's even a neat magazine rack on the front of the glove box here. Expect to pay somewhere in the £10,000 to £15,000 bracket for your Mazda 2, which is about par for the Super Mini course. There's a very reasonable £350 premium to go from the 3-door to this 5-door body style. As for rivals, well, you can see why the diesel variant of this car is a minority choice. Rivals with similar running costs, like pokier versions of the Peugeot 207 or Renault's Clio, undercut it on price, while rivals that cost similar money, like pokier diesel versions of Ford's Fiesta or Vauxhall's Corsa, undercut it on emissions. But when it comes to petrol power, the picture is much rosier from Mazda's point of view. If we're looking at the 1.3 litre 84 PS Mazda 2 that most customers choose, well, compared to mainstream rivals, a Vauxhall Corsa is probably the only one that can match it on fuel figures, and that car is much dirtier and costs around £600 more. A Ford Fiesta might seem a little cheaper at first glance, but again, it can't match this Mazda's running cost figures. Whichever 3 or 5-door Mazda 2 you choose, the 75 or 84 PS 1.3 litre petrol, the 102 PS 1.5 litre petrol, or the 95 PS 1.6 litre diesel, you should find it to be decently equipped. All models come with air conditioning, remote central locking, a decent quality CD stereo, power windows and mirrors, twin front airbags, a Thatcham Category 1 alarm and Isofix child seat fastenings for the rear seats. It's a pity though that the entry-level model does without split folding rear seats, stability control and side and curtain airbags. Oh, and unusually in this day and age, there's no Sat Nav option whichever Mazda 2 variant you choose. Safety-wise though, you'll find anti-lock brakes with electronic brake force distribution to maximise their effectiveness and emergency brake assist to help in sudden stops. When I first tested this car at its launch in 2007, I praised a 130 grams per kilometre CO2 reading that today would be seen as very poor indeed for a car of this class. Such is the pace of progress that a 1.3 litre petrol Mazda 2 now puts out no more than 119 grams per kilometre of CO2, with a 1.6 litre diesel managing 110 grams per kilometre. Only the 1.5 litre petrol variant is out of step here, the automatic model that I'm driving here managing just 146 grams per kilometre. In terms of combined cycle fuel figures, you're looking at 67.3 miles to the gallon from the 1.6 litre diesel, 55.4 miles to the gallon from the 1.3 litre petrol, and 48.7 miles to the gallon from the 1.5 litre petrol. Insurance groupings 9E to 16E are a little higher than the Super Mini mainstream norm, but you can balance that out with stronger residuals thanks to better build quality, reliability and durability. The evidence is simple. If you want to buy a used Mazda 2, you'll find it relatively difficult to persuade buyers to part with their original models. The cars that you typically think of in any given sector of the market aren't always the right ones. Here's a case in point. The Mazda 2 ought to make any small car buyer's top 5 choice list, but very often doesn't. Whether this mid-life refresh will make much difference to that state of affairs is debatable, but it certainly removes a number of the reasons for ignoring what is a very complete small car indeed. There remains a touch of sportiness to this model that many bored customers in this sector will like, but its real significance lies in its role as one of the few Super Minis of recent years to reverse the trend towards larger, heavier and needlessly over-complex small cars. Even better then that this improved version is nicer both to drive and to ride in, as well as being more affordable to run. Talk to the experts and it's hard to find one who won't recommend this little Mazda. Drive one and you'll understand why.